Mr. Speaker, that was quite the presentation from the member of Castries East. I, in fact, didn't know any better, Mr. Speaker. Sounded like a confession. I'm glad that the member from Micoud North also agreed to go before me, because I was waiting maybe that he would have filled some of the gaps that the Prime Minister, the member from Castries East, seemed to have left in his presentation, Mr. Speaker. It would seem from both presentations, Mr. Speaker, if I can say so up front, that it appears that the solution to the crime in this country is for the opposition just to shut up, say nothing, ask no questions, don't probe, do nothing. Come to the House, sit, applaud that the government's doing a fantastic job. The government's doing an amazing job. Is that what the government wants to hear? Is that what the Prime Minister wants to hear? Prime Minister spoke about the emotion behind crime. He's 100% right. Crime is emotional. It's very, very emotional. It affects people. You know, when you are a mother at your home at 11:30 at night with your children, feeling that you're safe, persons come knocking at your door, next thing you hear gunfire, you run for cover, you try to grab your kids, and you're only able to get your 3 daughters, and you leave your son outside. And when you finally think it's safe to come out, your son is lying on the floor bleeding. You hold him in your arms, not knowing, hoping for the best, praying, crying, all of those mixed emotions. And then we have a system that, despite the increase in the number of murders that we're seeing, and the murders that we're seeing are not domestic, are not family members fighting, brothers and sisters, boyfriends and girlfriends, husband and wives, but gruesome murders, Mr. Speaker, gruesome. And it's become a reality. I mean, if you're going to have, 60 murders in 1 year during my term, and you've had now 3 years consecutively of 73, 75, 77, and I think that we're close to 50, if we're not at 50 already for this year, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is becoming our norm. And the fact is that it's not just about the homicides anymore. And we heard from a very uniquely named ministry, crime prevention, of which I didn't hear the members speak anything about crime prevention on this bill. Not one thing. I'm not any wiser today about why the minister was appointed than I was 2 years ago when he was appointed. No wiser. That the trauma that's being caused, Mr. Speaker, we're not addressing it. The counseling, I mean, we have some women here. I want you to think for a moment, just imagine for yourself that in your house, that there was a killing of this like. You don't have a father in the house. It's you and the kids. You go to the police station for 6 hours to give a report. You're asking neighbors to help babysit your child while you go to the police station. You come back home. The blood is still on the floor. The bullet holes are still in the window. And what is it? We are forced to go back to the basics of life. I'm not criticizing. I'm saying that these are realities. These are our new realities. So where was the care? Where was the compassion? That we collectively, not you alone, we as a society collectively, was there a care package? Was somebody coming over to help her cook the dinner? Somebody going to help her scrub the blood off the ground? We're missing it. And we sit here, and can we really, truly envision what a mother who was shot and her son was shot 8 times. 8 times. 8 bullets in this young 15-year-old boy. It can't be business as usual. Not only from a crime prevention perspective, Mr. Speaker, not only from a detection perspective, meaning that after the fact that the persons are somehow found and pay a price, but there has to be some compassion and some recognition to the persons that have been put through this trauma. That is what we have to do, Mr. Speaker. We have to deal with this issue. And yes, it is an emotional issue. But it requires sometimes for us to open ourselves up, make ourselves vulnerable, to be able to understand and appreciate the urgency of that situation. And it is that urgency that causes us to work collectively together to find that solution. Prime Minister wants to talk about politicizing emotions. The gall of the Prime Minister, the gall of the Labour Party, to even say that after what this Labour Party did during COVID, the misinformation that they created out there about what was going on with COVID, policies to be able to save lives and to save livelihoods. That was not exploited. And if that wasn't bad enough that the government was oppressing them, no, let's add some more barren hot sauce into it. And let's now remind St. Lucians that the Prime Minister looks and sounds like a white man. Despite the fact, Mr. Speaker, that many members on the other side know my family. Prime Minister knows my family. In fact, the Prime Minister knows one of my cousins. Mr. Speaker, he knows one of my own cousins. And yet he can still look at me and tell me that I'm a white man, a man who has grown up in St. Lucia. My family has been here for 4 generations. Oh, Mr. Speaker, I knew they would come back with their flogging. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the question. When Velen John, who was a member of their own party, said that criminals should be flogged, there was no problem. Oh, so here the distinction. So now let's get the story right. What is going on in this country and the level of corruption and the deals that have been made, whether it's through CIP, GPH, NLA, all of them. are so egregious. Egregious. GPH, the St. Lucians haven't even begun to understand what has happened. I cannot wait for the member to come to the House and to tell all of us the lease that you gave GPH for the land at the port. How long was that lease for? And how much is the lease for? No, you've not said it. Did you tell the people it's for $1? Did you tell the people that the lease for the land on the port is for $1 per year for 30 years? Did you tell them that you've given them the incentives to be able to provide?
Member for Castry South.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to rise on a point of order. This morning, the honourable members complained about date statistics just been given. We've said in this House that we have a concessional agreement with GPH. The concessional agreement has no $1 or any value to it. It is based on the sharing of the head tax. He knows that. He has said it in public. He has said it in public repeatedly. But he's going to say now it's for public consumption, $1 for how many years to try and make it sound comparable to the DSH agreement. Now, Mr. Speaker, he will have to cease from continuing along those lines and speak to the bill that is before him. I think, Mr. Speaker, we've listened long enough to this tangential approach that he's taken to the debate.
Mr. Speaker, I'd be very happy to make the lease a document of the House. A lease
So,
between
Mr. Speaker,
the Crown.
can I rise on a point of order? Can this honourable House take a break for 15 minutes so the honourable member can make the lease agreement with GPH for $1 for 30 years, $1 a year, a document of this House. He just said that he can make it a document of this House. I move, Mr. Speaker, that this House stands suspended until the honourable member can make available to this honourable House a copy of a lease document for $1 a year for 30 years. A lease document.
Member for Mico South, your response?
I'm very happy to acquiesce to his request, and I can send it immediately, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if I should send it to you, and you can have it printed, whichever you prefer, Mr. Speaker.
So, members, the question is that this House do send suspended for 15 minutes to allow the leader of the opposition time to make, I want to be very careful in my words, a lease document showing $1 per year for 30 years to GPH. And now for the question, as many as that opinion say aye, as many as that contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Sitting suspended.
Eh bien, nous ici en CARICOM site, qui a mené directement, ça qui va passer en CARICOM site là, ça c'est c'est pas un bill, ça c'est une loi, on va discuter à présent, une loi, ça qui a créé CARICOM Arrest Warrant Treaty, ça c'est un agrément qui passait par CARICOM pour garder qui manière ça un criminel, ça c'est pour joindre criminel qui casse la loi et fait l'offense en un pays et pour mener à dans l'autre pays côté yo fait crime et bien bagaille comme ça avec c'est ça qui a discuté premier ministre qui présenté Après, il présentait, il était mis, là même après, c'était honorable Jeremiah Norbert qui a une responsabilité pour empêchement crime. Il aussi parlé avec dit manière il a supporté loi ça là qui le gouvernement a traité ça là. Avec moi aussi je voulais dire que loi ça là déjà passé en l'autre pays CARICOM depuis l'année 3 et bien 4 l'année passée, mais il était c'est à chaque pays a ni pour passer même loi ça là pour y venir effective comme on a dit. So à présent en Sainte-Lucie là même après honorable Jeremiah Norbert fait contribution membre parlement pour Sud-Nico honorable Alan Chastanet qui est chef façade opposition il debout pour parler avec comme la coutume il a critiqué le gouvernement pour approcher à ce manière il a fait avec des affaires criminelles. Alors, là, il a parlé, il dit, il dit c'est comme que le gouvernement, par cette liste, enfin, il a parlé à ce loi, puisqu'il a parlé, il a critiqué plusieurs autres bagages, projets, gouvernement, différents bagages. Avec un de ces projets, il parlait à c'est ça, il a créé GPH. Ça, c'est un projet gouvernement pour rebâtir la WAD là en Castries avec Pointe-Séraphine et Place Raza pour un GPH compagnie. GPH, c'est une compagnie de l'autre pays qui a venu bâtir ça, avec, mais particulièrement, il prend en possession, ça c'est ça il a créé Cruise, ça c'est ces bâtiments Cruise là qui a entré avec un agrément et puis cette ici avec Alan Chastanet qui a dit comme que l'année un agrément gouvernement si un agrément pour $1 pour bail GPH pour GPH payer $1 par l'année pour 30 l'année avec Alessa là membre parlement pour Sud-Castries honorable Honestly le docteur Madei pour mettre ça comme preuve avec il dit comme qu'il a fait comme preuve puisqu'il fait en parole qu'il n'est pas d'accord et puis alors il a demandé pour présenter preuve là avec pour aller ça là il a décidé bon pour bailler chance pour présenter preuve ça là pour ça continuer.
Yes, very good summary of what happened. Just one thing I just want to clarify there. In making his contribution, in making the statement that the government had signed that agreement with GPH for taking over the ports and making the agreement to give it to GPH for $1 for 30 years, he was the one who quickly added that he could make the document a document of the House. And it was at this point that the Minister for Tourism rose and asked the Speaker of the House for a suspension to allow the leader of the opposition to make available that agreement, which he referenced, the government's agreement with GPH, which he referenced. In his rebuttal, the Minister for Tourism said the leader of the opposition was attempting to equate the GPH agreement with the agreement that his government had signed with the DSH, where they had signed an agreement with the Chinese for 99 years and had given over the lands for $1 per acre. So the tourism minister said the opposition leader was just attempting to equate the thing and that there was absolutely no truth to his statement and that there was a partnership between GPH and the government of St. Lucia. So we are waiting. The members are there and we are waiting for that document to be presented.
Okay. So ce qui est fait là, c'est qu'on veut dire nous la qu'à espérer pour puisque secrétaire qui m'a regardé mon qui a noter ça qui a passé en parlement c'est assistant député clerk of parliament assistant il descend downstairs puis ça fait 3D exactement ça ça c'est honorable Alan Chastanet en les téléphones, ça c'est mobile, il peut capable c'est là avec il a vrai c'est pour mettre sur papier, ça veut dire pour chaque monde joindre en copie avec speaker pour voir exactement ça puisque comme on dit nous dit c'est ça depuis ça c'est on va énergie les demander pour preuve ça là mais quand nous avons parlé nous avons ouais la en communication entre ça c'est on va Alain Chastanet, ça c'est chef face à l'opposition et puis speaker il a monté descendre il y en a l'autre cas il a montré ça qui en les phone mobile mais nous pas savons exactement ça qu'a discuté mais nous assurer toutes les autres ces membres parlement là et à part des ces membres parlement ça qui était là depuis aujourd'hui nous aussi nous pour dire Virgile qui depuis aujourd'hui nous pas tenir présence ça c'est membre parlement pour vieux effort sous vieux effort on est Dr Kenny Anthony nous partir aussi tenir présence monsieur ça c'est membre parlement pour Sud-Est Castro ça c'est honorable Joachim Henry il partait présent et aussi nous tenir présence membre parlement pour Nord Denry ça c'est honorable Sean Edward c'est moun ça la partie là depuis le commencement nous pas savoir pour quelle raison peut-être à ce business gouvernement moun qui était là aussi plus bonheur c'est qui part ici à présent c'est membre parlement pour choisir il était là plus bonheur mais il quittait à présent avec il parle là à présent pour discuter motion ça.
Yeah. I was just thinking, what is so interesting about this impasse, Mike? You know,
you call it an impasse.
Well, for the moment,
yes,
is that we're wondering even how we got here, considering that the bill that was before the House was the CARICOM arrest warrant.
Yes,
and
it's so far removed.
And it is so far removed from the actual bill. This bill, of course, it allows for CARICOM governments to come into some kind of extradition agreement to be able
facilitate the
extradition of criminals in the region. And in his contribution to that bill, the Minister for Crime Prevention, he spoke on the need to close loopholes because even the criminals themselves were becoming so advanced, and he really praised the bill as a step in the right direction towards, the government's continued efforts in fighting crime.
Aussi, Virgile, pendant que nous avons expliqué, nous avons dit le Premier ministre a présenté un bill qui a discuté, quand nous dit encore, ça c'est un bill gouvernement qui a passé comme un agrément, et je vais répéter esprit pour les gens comprendre, c'est un agrément le CARICOM Japon pour aider, pour faciliter ces gouvernements, pour voir les gens qui font crime l'autre pays, voir un pays côté ils fait crime là. Ça c'est pour nous en anglais, c'est CARICOM
Arrest Warrant
Treaty. Bon, ça s'est passé en 2019, c'est 2019, je crois qu'il manie bien. Peut-être ça a corrigé comme après, mais ça c'est en loi, et bien en agrément qui simplicité ni pour passer, et tout l'autre pays rejoint ni pour passer. Avec selon présentation Premier ministre, ça c'est et qui aussi c'est même Parlement pour escasser avec aussi une responsabilité pour finance et puis sécurité nationale. Là, il passe, il t'a parlé, il dit situation crime en pays, il mauvais. Depuis bon matin, il t'a parlé de crime, c'est un bagage qui a affecté par il dit qu'il y a une épidémie. Il dit c'est un qui pas seulement Sainte-Lucie qui a affecté. Avec au cas où loi ça là, et bien agrément ça là, CARICOM j'ai adopté avec c'est une démarche qui yo ka pour garder qui manière ça veut dire crime puisque encore. Ça, c'est un bagage qui a affecté plusieurs pays en région CARICOM. Il y a aussi de la tenue en comité légal. CARICOM a développé un comité pour les affaires légales pour qui développer bill là. Avec aussi mentionné, ça c'est honorable Jeremiah Norbert en présentation. Il parlait en chai sur ces différents démarches que le gouvernement a pris pour adresser la situation criminelle. Il parlait sur ça, il a créé escalated crime scene. Pour changer peut-être l'année, l'année passée, l'année passée, une situation en vieux fort. La tenue en chai avec le gouvernement pour passer en loi pour ça veut dire que escalated crime a dans certaines places. Ça c'est yon. Il y a aussi un autre programme que le gouvernement a adopté, il a créé Swift Justice. Ça c'est pour faire assurer que les gens ne pas rester trop longtemps à faire l'audience avec comme ça, pour faire l'audience marcher plus vite avec un programme comme ça. Malgré le Premier ministre aussi dit qu'il ça fait raison qui fait il pas qu'à continuer tellement bien en affaires sur justice. C'est puisqu'il a pas mis assez juge avec un monde pour faire aller bien. Et qu'il aussi dit l'année problème qui depuis après Covid. Premièrement, ça c'est le Premier ministre et bien honorable Jeremiah Norbert qui dit depuis après Covid système justice pays il pas qu'à marcher tellement bien. En chaque délai, il y a pour faire sur internet, l'audience sur internet avec il dit généralement un gouvernement concerné en pile avec situation criminelle et qui a fait tout ça. Et puis on l'autre on Jeremiah Norbert dit il dit gouvernement passer loi ça il a créé un Firearms Act pour faire les chébé moun et puis fusil et bien zam yo ka dit particulièrement fusil pour mettre $25,000 moi quoi il était 10 000 et bien 15 000 et mettre pour 25 adam moun te ka dit ça pas assez puisque yo ka joindre moun ka c'est moun ça qui a fait c'est comme ça la ka ça tellement vite à présent quand même gouvernement a aussi passé et aussi. But you must have a film.
Very good. Yes. No, pas les talk. Give it all the details.
Ça c'est le pour faire un petit coup de créole.
Yeah, and you were mentioning all the programs that the Minister for Crime Prevention said his government, has put in place. He also spoke about programs such as the rehabilitation and parole. And one of the things he was at wit's end to explain, and he said that his government is principally responsible for policy direction and resource support for the police force. He said at no time will his government get involved in the operations of the police force.
And he continues to
He
say
continued to belabor that point that they are going to make all the resources available. They will look into the policies. They shall give the police all that is required, but it would not be the responsibility for the police for the Prime Minister or even himself as Minister of Crime Prevention to direct the police to send a convoy with what's going on or send a van over there because this is going on. He said this is a clear distinction that they would not get involved in. He said in as much as people would say that the government is not doing enough, but he was saying what they're really insinuating is that the government should get involved in the day-to-day operations and the running of the force. And he said even though that was done in the past, that he said that his government would not let that happen. It was one of the things he kept going on.
On l'autre bail, nous sommes mentionnés, c'est mon parti a massé, durant la présentation Premier ministre à ce bill là, il peut mettre pour bail ces polices plus ressources. Je ne sais pas exactement ça y est, mais maintenant on va Jeremiah Norbert aussi parler à ce ressources pour mettre
Yes, I
Premier
think-
Minister qui promet.
I think as early as tomorrow. Did he
Oui,
say
demain,
tomorrow?
oui,
He said he would
mais-
be. Yeah, there would be some kind of announcement
Okay.
tomorrow. I think which would be about further support to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Of course, he
Right.
didn't give details on
yeah.
exactly what that would entail.
Right. L'autre bail là, nous ça aussi parlé pendant temps nous avons espéré preuve là entrer. Et encore cette ici nous avons parlé mais ça si un cas au can venir au brancher puis nous à présent puis au peut-être cacatile qui ça qui aller là nous on est qu'à parler avec ou pas qu'à rien qu'a fait. Quand il consiste Japon anti pause pour regarder pour Silon premier ça c'est chef façade opposition qui était fait en parole il était dit durant la présentation il dit comme que qui gouvernement signé un agrément et puis GP8 ça c'est compagnie qui a bâti la Wad Castu et souffrir pour avec les moyens de bâtir la Wad là c'est pas en plein mais cette section la Wad là pour accommoder ces bâtiments cruise là comme ça avec honorable Alan Chastanet dit comme que le gouvernement signé un agrément pour 30 l'année pour yo payer $1 par l'année c'est ça
Pour toute l'année.
pour 30 l'année avec à l'est là honorable Ernest Hiller, ça c'est docteur Ernest Hiller qui est ministre qui est responsable pour les affaires touristes et qui était il a mis temps agrément ça là. C'est ma c'est lui mais il a mis temps puisqu'il c'est lui qui ministre qui des affaires touristes. Il dit ça pas vrai, il dit bout et dit et demandé honorable Alan Chastanet pour présenter preuve avec Alessandra il speaker m'a permission pour quitter Kaila, pour suspendre l'activité pour un au moins pour 15 minutes pour bailler ces travailleurs en parlement en chance pour mettre à sous papier. Ça laisse là, même pour tirer en les phones, puisqu'il en les phones, ça c'est téléphone mobile, il était mis à l'aide pour tout tirer et mettre à sous papier pour présenter bailler speaker avec l'autre membres Kaila consiste là qui ici. Comme presque ça c'est comme ça égal et ça c'est ça qui tient nous derrière moi aussi veux dire avant moi faire ça moi veux dire que un autre point qui honorable Jeremiah Norbert mentionné durant la présentation c'est succès Ubuntu mouvement Ubuntu c'est un arrangement qui était fait en vieux fort par différentes organisations pour aider situations des fois venir normal et à présent tout le monde a félicité qu'on succès mais c'est mon nous qui a changé qui était participé à ça c'était monde qu'on Prince Kelash Dr. King et l'autre moi ça Catherine Silis c'est mon ça là Reservoir tout c'est mon ça là qui travaille en mouvement ça là yo qui engagé comme maintenant yo fait plusieurs travail social et engagement pour mener une situation vieux fois avec c'est ça qui a créé Ubuntu aussi en sous même Ubuntu moi changé avec premier ministre et bien yon c'est mon qui même parlement qui en présentation dit yo joine critiquer en pile par façade opposition pour ça yo te joine en chèque yo gagne critiquer yo pour qu'a bail l'argent et moi quand c'est premier ministre qui dit ça avec Mejodia quand c'est mon gars dit knock on wood et bien fait on go sinon quoi ou quoi ouais mouvement Ubuntu en vieux fort il jamais succès il y a chaitan nous pour autant rien nous qu'a prédire il va rester comme ça avec pour situation venir top limit.
And yes, this is an issue that the whole issue of crime, came up a lot in the House this morning. Even when the motion to remove, to extend the zero VAT status on certain goods, including feminine products. I mean, the government decided to make feminine hygiene products zero-rated VAT permanently, to keep it as a permanently zero-rated VAT item. Even in that, we saw the issue of crime coming up, the value-added tax. the leader of the opposition, he brought it up. And so crime has been, not surprisingly, coming up, throughout the debate today in the House. We heard the whole issue of crime. And one of the things, you hear the Prime Minister and other members saying it, including members on the opposite, the need, each side decry how terrible crime is for the country, and the need for people to come together and to come up with solutions for the crime situation. The Prime Minister, for instance, said under no circumstances that crime should be politicized. He said, we need to get down to the bottom of why would a young man, 13, 14 years, pick up a gun and want to, go after his schoolmate and then shoot him in the head, and basically implying that there are so many variations, and so many different causes to the whole issue of crime that surely it cannot be in anybody's interest, it cannot be in the country's best interest that crime can be politicized. Crime should not be politicized. The leader, the member for Central Castries also, in his contribution this morning, also had to rebut and speak on the whole issue of crime after it was brought up, and he was saying, he gave statistics on how incidents of homicides have increased over the years, and showing in essence where both governments had suffered similar similar cases where you saw a spike in homicides, with the government of the United Workers' Party and with the government of the Sinisha Labour Party, indicating for sure that it is a problem and minds need to come together to deal with the issue of crime in this land.
Monica Vindi, Talia, qui, ça c'est des fois, deuxième fois nous avons oui c'est ma bagaille comme ça qu'a fait. Moi ça c'est dernière fois qu'il constitue qu'un hôtel là.
Yes.
Est-ce que dernière fois ou bien avant ça?
No, sometime before I think.
Mais exactement ça, même bagaille ça l'a été fait. Mais est-ce que ça a changé à ça? Pour qui ça?
I can't recall on exactly what, but it
mais
is
c'est presque un même bagaille comme ça. Il était pour deux bouts, session qu'il constitue pour bailler, pour même ça fait preuve là pour présenter preuve là, bailler c'est l'autre membre parlement. Mais quand nous parlons là, nous avons qui sécurité, bien, claque parlement, ça c'est assistant claque là, madame, là, j'ai allé, j'ai mis sur papier et présenté chaque papier à chaque monde, ni en copie, ça c'est ça nous avons créé preuve là. Bon, preuve là, c'est exactement ça, on va aller chercher des agréments même. Puis des documents même, c'est ça qui preuve là. So, il can présenter à présent avec speaker qui constitue.
Honorable members, we are back on the record, and member for Castries South, he raised an objection. The member for Mico South has made good on his promise. Would you like to respond?
So, Mr. Speaker, when we broke, the member from Mico South gave the impression to this honorable House and the entire nation that this government went and leased to GPH the port and the lands at the port for $1 a year for 30 years. I want to repeat that. That we leased $1 a year for 30 years. Every single honorable member in this house was under the impression that the lands at the port would lease for $1 a year. $1 a year. He did not say to this honorable house, and that's why I stopped him, to show me, because any common sense reading of this document, any school child reading of this document will tell you the document must be read clause after clause after clause. Clause after clause after clause. So sit down and let me explain to you. Now I can understand why this country was in so much trouble after 6 years of your leadership. Because you did not seem to have basic understanding of issues. Basic understanding. So this is a document that was prepared. And let me backtrack a bit. We signed a concessional agreement with GPH. They paid off the debt of Slasper. They are developing the new vendors arcade. They're developing the fisherman's village at Banan. They're developing the wharf at Point Seraphine. They're building Jeremy Street. They did Jeremy Street. They're doing the boardwalk. They're doing Soufre waterfront. A series of activities will take place. That's the concession agreement. Plus, we share the head tax with them. For them to build and develop and operate the businesses at the different places, the vendors arcade, what's the other one, Banan, whatnot, they have to have title to be able to build. Just for example, any bolt agreement you're doing right at the Halls of Justice, you have to provide title so it can be built upon whatnot. This clearly states, this custodies, all of them, this clearly states that the leasing, covenants with the leaseor, 8. 1, to pay the rents, that is just renting the land, renting it. That's at $1. 2, to build, operate, and maintain the terms as per the terms of the CA, the works defined in the CA. So you pay the $1, you build, all of that is in exchange for the lands. The CA, which is a concession agreement. So 1A is to pay the rents. 2, to build, operate, and maintain. 3, for the purposes to maintain all the facilities. 4, to construct buildings on the demised premises. It goes 5, to keep all such buildings and erections, including drains, blah, 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 in good and tenable repair. And it goes on with all the obligations, of which just one of them is the rent of the land. The rent of the land. It gives you all a series of things they have to pay. A series of them. But he stands up and gives you the impression that GPH was given the land for $1 a year. For $1 a year. And that's the impression he's giving. I'm waiting for him to show me which document that shows that GPH got lands at the port for $1 a year. And that you are misleading the house. The dollar is the rental part. In addition to that, they are spending over $60 million. $60 million. $60 million. Let me just, Mr. Speaker, let us proceed. This is clearly a very cheap attempt to mislead and to spin. And they're very good at doing this, sir. That when they try one accusation, you rebuff it and you deconstruct it. They spin it and they come with a different angle. There is no lease of the port or lands at the port for any $1 a year for 30 years. There was a concession agreement with GPH that clearly stated all their obligations. All their obligations, totaling tens of millions of US dollars. Tens of millions of US dollars. One clause says you shall pay a rent of the land for the land at $1. It says we lease the port and the lands at the port for $1 a year. Now, Mr. Speaker, yeah, initially, Mr. Speaker, he said we had sold the port to GPH. Sold the port to GPH.
Not here.
Huh?
Not here.
He said it here, there, and everywhere. You understand? So, but Mr. Speaker, this is another cheaper than
Member for Mikosa. Sarge, can you put on the microphone, friend?
Mr. Speaker, it really is very, very, very sad when the integrity of a member of this House, particularly a member who is the deputy political leader of the party, the deputy prime minister of this country, holds the portfolio of CIP, holds the portfolio of investment and tourism, Mr. Speaker. So a person has obviously been given a tremendous amount of confidence in the House. Would, after being caught, and I'm glad everybody, that's why I took my time to let him speak enough, to see how he was going to try to wiggle his way out of this. Mr. Speaker, this is a document that was signed before a lawyer, Thaddeus Mark Antoine, between Charles III, which is the Crown, Mr. Speaker, and GPH. We don't have to go very far. It says, whereas the governments of St. Lucia and the Air Seaports Authority and the lessee have entered into a concession. Mr. Speaker, not only is this a 30-year lease, but it's an emphyteutic lease, because it is actually in their concessions allowing them to pass on the incentives that they're getting to a third party. So it means they can actually mortgage this land, Mr. Speaker. They can put up this land as collateral.
Member for Castle Central.
Mr. Speaker, I'm a bit lost because the member, it's a point I need to be elucidated from a legal standpoint. He said it is an emphyteutic lease. A 30-year lease is an emphyteutic lease. I want to know how it becomes an emphyteutic lease, Mr. Speaker. Because an emphyteutic lease is normally a 99-year lease.
I know the member from Cassidy Central has many lawyers, so I'll let him go and get advice before we have that discussion. But the reality is, Mr. Speaker, when you read this lease, and more importantly, the other letter is a concession letter. It's very, very clear what the intention of the government is going to do. And I want to say that the fact is that they're leasing it for $1 per year for 30 years. Now, I'm listening to the member from Castries South. Really? Rent? And because we're going to give them the land, and we can justify giving it for $1 because they're going to build on it? Are all of you for real? Really? Really? Nobody said you sold it. Somebody's, what, you know what we said? You know what we said? The Labour Party has sold out St. Lucians. Because what the member and the port, what his member has not provided the details of, Mr. Speaker. If in fact we were getting $6.50 before, in total, as a head tax, Mr. Speaker, $6.50. And of that, $1.50 was going to solid waste. $2.50 was going to SLASPA, and $2.50 was going to the government of St. Lucia. And a report that was done by the Ministry of Finance, a team, told the government, Mr. Speaker, the better deal to do than GPH is to take the $2.50 that was going to the government and give it to SLASPA. If SLASPA was getting $5, everything that they had earmarked for GPH to do, SLASPA itself would have done. No need for leasing the land, no need for any of the concessions, nothing. They could have done everything by themselves. Instead, the genius, the great negotiator, goes and has a meeting on March 30th and signs an agreement on April 1st, appropriately April 1st. To do what? To agree that there's going to be a $12 tax. And of that $12, GPH is going to get $10. Why? Why would you give GPH St. Lucia? What has GPH brought to St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker? Have they brought expertise? Is it that we've now all of a sudden lost the expertise to build a vendor's arcade, Mr. Speaker? Is it we've lost the expertise to strengthen a dock, Mr. Speaker? Is it the expertise to build a broadwalk? We cannot do that, Mr. Speaker. We cannot fix up Soufriere Town, Mr. Speaker. We rely on a third party through a secret deal to be able to go and do that for us, Mr. Speaker. That is where we've come to. We've regressed. This is the same country that in 1981, under Sir John Compton, built Point Seraphin way ahead of its time. The first in the Southern Caribbean to have a dedicated port facility. We did that. This is the same SLASPA that did the extension for the quantum class. We in St. Lucia did that. The vendor's arcade was built by St. Lucia. All of a sudden we cannot. Now, you know what the hypocrisy of all of this is, Mr. Speaker? The worst part about this, and we talk about emotion and you want to blame people and taking advantage of situations. Who was more villainized over DSH and leasing 180 acres for $1 an acre a year? And why is it that that deal on that land, with the same expectation, Mr. Speaker, that DSH was going to build a horse racing track with their own money, the same member from Castile Central, 6 years now, Theo King got CIP money. He can't prove it, never. We're in court and he will not be able to prove it in court. He will lose that in court.
Member for Castile Central.
Mr. Speaker, I hardly disclose, but just on a point of elucidation, Mr. Speaker.
Elucidation?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Are you yielding to elucidation?
On a point of order, Mr. Speaker, he is misleading the House. Mr. Speaker, there is no way you can juxtapose. He said that basically this lease agreement can stand side by side with the agreement with DSH. That is a virtual impossibility, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I read this, very early in the whereas clauses at number 2, and it speaks to the juxtaposition of this lease with another agreement. It says, and I quote, "This lease agreement is entered into as a result of the concession agreement." So how can you take this in isolation, not even check the concession agreement? This is not a standalone document, Mr. Speaker. It is not a standalone document. There is a concession agreement which is the basis for the formation or execution of this lease. So you take this lease, the concession agreement may have said that GPH paid off all government debts of $100 million. Where is it? And it certainly justifies the execution of this. And I could tell you one of the things in the concession agreement is GPH is paying off a loan of SLASPA of $20 million, US dollars. That is nowhere in the lease agreement. You will not see it. But he will take the lease agreement. He will forget he will take the lease. He will forget the agreement that gives rise to the execution of the lease and deal with the lease as though it stands alone. Mr. Speaker, législateur, permit me to say that in Creole.
Remember, omission is not a breach of the standing orders.
Very well, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, moi vle di ça.
You do have an opportunity to speak.
I have.
On the bill, so.
No, yes, that's what's before
no,
us.
Remember, you have an opportunity to speak on the bill.
I will,
But you're getting 2 opportunities now.
I will, Mr. Speaker. I definitely will.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You know, there must be something over in that corner, Mr. Speaker, because when you've been giving people in this House a certain amount of advice, it seems they're ignoring you. You know, it's amazing, and I hope that St. Lucia is listening to this, what the member from Castile Central just said. He said you cannot judge the lease by itself because it makes reference to a concession agreement. I agree with him, Mr. Speaker. The same way that when we speak about the Daher Mall, that we've been in this house and we're now in court on this situation, where we've brought a lease to this house and we said you cannot look at the lease by itself because the lease makes reference to what? A development agreement, which is exactly the same as the concession agreement. And he's right.
Member for Miku South, this is chalk and cheese. What was debated in this house on the Daher Mall was your argument was it was not sold. There was a deed of sale. So these are two different things. So perhaps you may not want to go down that route.
To a development agreement as to what the conditions of that sale were. And it's when you go to the conditions of the sale that you understand that what the government did was allow exactly what is taking place here, is allowing the developer to have access to the space in order to be able to get a loan, and that the government is going to pay back its portion of the loan. But that is only in the development agreement. It is not in the deed of sale. And I'm just so happy that the member did that because I've been trying to explain that to him forever, and all of a sudden now there's a revelation, an understanding. But the issue was, and I said, that you leased port land, and this is only one, you know, Mr. Speaker. There's more. There's more. I said you leased land for $1. You have. And not even that the member from Castries South conceded. He has not conceded on what's happened at CIP and the illegality.
Remember, we are debating the CARICOM arrest warrant treaty. Unless you're speaking to for Castries South, I'm trying to see the relevance.
I started off my presentation by saying that the Prime Minister gave a confession. The Prime Minister went all over the world. I'm not the one who brought these issues up, you know, Mr. Speaker. These issues were brought up in the debate. But, Mr. Speaker, we have not heard the last of it. If the member from Castries South believes that he can get away continuously in saying mistruths about agreements that the government has undertaken on behalf of the people of St. Lucia, it's coming. Today was only a beginning of the amount of information that will unravel the level of corruption that has happened in this country, Mr. Speaker. The corruption. Mr. Speaker, as I said, the members, Prime Minister wants to speak about the canine dog, and I think he used the word disband. Mr. Speaker, is the Prime Minister who came and said that, along with his deputy, that $40,000 a month was too much for the canine dogs that were there? And in fact, went as far as to say that they're going to be getting the scanners and the dogs are no longer needed. And the fact is the 3 dogs that were here, Mr. Speaker, were sent home. In fact, you know where the dogs ended up, Mr. Speaker? The dogs ended up in Jamaica. That's where they've been. And doing an amazing, amazing job in Jamaica. And it's not until the French gave them this new canine dog that they brought back the canine dog. And that's when the Prime Minister said, well, I was a bit wrong because we're going to need both. Of course you're going to need both. It's always been clear that you're going to need both.
Mr. Speaker,
Member for Castries East,
I've allowed him.
please wait until I call you. Please proceed.
Sorry. I've allowed him to get along for it. Mr. Speaker, he just quotes me and quotes me. Mr. Speaker, you know, I'm going to quote him in my rebuttal. I hope he stays to head. I'm going to play him.
Member from Miku South.
Thank you very much. What is more astonishing, Mr. Speaker, is Tyson was killed, was murdered, because he's a police officer, under suspicious circumstances. Suspicious circumstances. 2 months. Can't even get an autopsy. Can't get a report. Prime Minister has not even told us at what point did this friendly government come to him to offer him a new dog? And why is it taking so long? And what is he going to put in place to make sure that a canine dog in the custody of the police can remain safe? Because that's a question. Because you have to answer that question first, you know, Mr. Speaker, before you bring another dog. Speaks about the attack on the Commissioner of Police. I've only had one issue with this new Commissioner of Police, and that is the handling of my own security detail, which I think was handled extremely unprofessionally and came across as being highly politicized. Because the same member from Castries Central made all kinds of claims about him. Next thing you know, the gentleman is moved, told he's being moved for medical reasons. Next thing now, his superior, who's never even spoken to him, files a complaint. The complaint is all of a sudden disappeared. And I don't have my security. Nobody's given me an explanation as to what has transpired. And I told the commissioner, not behind his back, that it was extremely concerning and disturbing because it stinks of political interference. Mr. Speaker, we speak about an escalated crime act. Again, I think the intentions we debated in this House of the escalated crime act were good. We argued that it fell short of the requirement of the Constitution because there were aspects of it that was allowing police to detain people, hold people in their homes, and the provision that was not there was a report. Mr. Speaker, have we ever had a report to this House as to how many people were searched, how many people were detained in their homes? One report. Have we had one report?
But member, you know that you have the right to request it.
Sorry?
You know you have the right to request it.
Yes. Oh, I do? I would say to you, Mr. Speaker, that it's the right of the people to know. And you would have hoped that, like, in fact, the reason why we have a state of emergency is the fact of producing a report is stated in the state of emergency legislation. Mr. Speaker, we spoke about the halls of justice and issue that we have with halls of justice. We need a halls of justice. We were building one. We were building the six courthouses right next to the old police headquarters. If they chose to go now and rebuild an old custody suites, a new version of custody suites. The issue that we have with the halls of justice, Mr. Speaker, no bid. And the terms, up to now, the Prime Minister, the member from Castries East, doesn't want to even admit the cost of the building is $150, $160 million. But the cost of financing it is another $150 million. 10% per year for 12 years. So what, a building is going to build itself? That's the terms. And those terms, we couldn't go to St. Lucia to find it. We had to get it in the Trinidad papers because you know what? The contractor was boasting about those terms. That makes the rent of that building that the government is going to have to pay, the people of this country are going to have to pay, $16 a square foot a month. $16 a square foot. You can tell me what you want about Dyer Mall. Dyer Mall is costing the government of St. Lucia $4. This new building is going to cost the people of St. Lucia $16 a square foot, Mr. Speaker. That is fact. Mr. Speaker, with regards to the Prime Minister's comments about the CCJ, issue was a referendum. I have no issue. All I wanted was, and like a lot of other people, on something as important as this, you're going to get a Attorney General's advice in which they said that there was a typographical error.
Remember, you're misleading the House. That was a court, not the Attorney General's advice. A 2-1 Court of Appeal decision. The Attorney General gave no advice on this matter. That's a document to the House. Do not proceed along those lines.
Quick to want to play a role, and I appreciate that, Mr. Speaker.
Remember, I am not playing any role.
You are,
I
Mr.
am
Speaker.
speaking on
this
matters
instance,
that I have. Remember, I'm speaking about matters of which I have some knowledge. I happen to have been the presiding officer at the time the court gave an opinion, and that opinion came to the House. So I'm aware of it, and it is wrong to say that the CCJ was proceeded upon on the advice of the Attorney General. That is not true.
That's not what I was saying. What I was saying, okay, is that it's called an Attorney General's opinion. The Attorney General is allowed to write.
Called an Attorney General's reference. Meaning the Attorney General refers it, and it does not go through the same processes that a regular case goes through.
Correct. I was not insinuating that the Attorney General wrote the opinion. Okay? It was the Court of Appeal that gave the opinion. I get it. But it was an opinion. Okay? It's an opinion.
Isn't that what all court decisions are? It does give opinions on a matter of law. So this one is no different.
Speaker, I'll get on and I'll let you have that discussion with the Attorney General, but I think you're a little misguided in that notion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we speak about gaps in our system. Of course, every incoming government, once it's reviewed a policy and is in support of the policy, will continue to do things, whatever it can do to strengthen those policies. That is a matter of course, Mr. Speaker. The member spoke about impacts. What is impacts? We had a program called Restore Confidence. The former Prime Minister that was involved in that is here, in which they were killings by the police, and there were persons who reported that these were extrajudicial killings. In fact, the same members in this House, many of them, were part of that bandwagon that made all kinds of allegations about a particular person having a strong influence on the then Prime Minister. And there were all kinds of complaints as to his characteristics, his involvement, and what was going on. And when the new government came in, because the elections came, after making all of those allegations, they did nothing.
What did you do?
They did nothing, Mr. Speaker. They did nothing. And as a result of doing nothing, eventually, the US, Europeans, Canadians, and the British put a significant amount of pressure on the government, which influenced very heavily the decision to bring in independent persons to do a report. And that report took on the name of the Impacts Report. It was the then Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, who went on TV, public knowledge, and said that they were politicians, corrupt policemen, and corrupt business people that were the significant causes of crime in this country. And the report went through each of the extrajudicial killings and making some damning observations, of which the same then Prime Minister spoke about, how damning it was. And even before that impacts report was done, in order to put pressure on the government of St. Lucia, the US government imposed what's called the Leahy because they did not believe that the government of St. Lucia then was taking this thing seriously. And the Leahy was what? That our police force was not allowed to get any support from the US government. No training, no ammunition, nothing. Nothing. For years. It had a severe impact on the quality of our police force and the effectiveness of our police force. And the member from Castries Central rightfully asked, what did I do? I did exactly what the Prime Minister in many ways has said. The role of the political executive is to provide resources. Who prosecutes? The DPP. And the DPP oversees all of the investigations. And it's for the DPP to make that final decision. And after the resources were made for the DPP, because we didn't even have a DPP when we came into office, no computers, no printers, it had been depleted. What's the word? I mean, completely. We rebuilt it. Mr. Green came in as a new DPP. Forensics had not been done. All these things took place, and after all of that, the DPP told the Commissioner of Police that he's ready to prosecute. He made a public announcement first to say that he will not be able to change the decisions of the inquest, or not inquest, what's it called, the coroner's inquest, right? On some of them, because it's just too long gone and there's just not enough evidence. But he chose the cases that he wanted. One was Beige, and the other one was what they call the 5 from Vieux Fort, the Vieux Fort 5. And he proceeded to attempt to create a prosecution for those. He has publicly announced that he is ready to proceed, and yet 2 commissioners of police have not proceeded. Why? Why? Why has that not happened? Big question marks. You then now have, Mr. Speaker, the police commissioner coming in indicating that evidence in 3 very important matters, all dealing with police, as has the impacts report, all dealing with police. The persons that are supposed to be charged are the persons, the police officers involved in the Beige shooting and the people involved in the Vieux Fort 5. Nobody's been charged. Now on the De Leon case, I'm not you. I know where policy begins and ends. Okay? But in order to be able to have policy, you must also, as a manager, know if your policy is being implemented and the effectiveness of it. The decisions that are made internally, those are not my decisions. None. But in the De Leon case, Mr. Speaker, interestingly enough, Commission says that the evidence is gone. I've listened to many St. Lucians. Many St. Lucians believe it's the gun that was gone. It's not the gun. It's the shells. And after the murder, the killing, murder in 2019, the shells were sent off to St. Kitts to their forensic lab. And it was digitized. The shells were then brought back to St. Lucia and sent to the Bahamas and digitized. And it's because it was in Bahamas and it went on a internet pool of information that the Martinicans matched the gun. And that was the big piece of evidence. And it was not until, Mr. Speaker, that the police were requested by the French to send the shells over to Martinique that the shells went missing. I have no idea where the noose is gone, but I have to say this, Mr. Speaker. I know that there's a system that you sign in when you put the evidence in, and you sign out. I heard the member from Castries South Central, this typical thing trying to throw dust in people's eyes and talking about, well, maybe when the suite, we call it, the comfort suites was, sorry? custody suites, thank you, was demolished. It's not true. All that stuff had been taken out, all been put in an air-conditioned container, Mr. Speaker. All of it. All of it. Okay? All of it. So the fact is, Mr. Speaker, you have a deputy commissioner that has risen the ranks in the last 2 to 3 years. The evidence of that is there. The record is there. Who every attempt is being made, and I don't want to put words in the Prime Minister's mouth, but certainly I can say to you, from outside looking in, would appear that every attempt is being made to make this gentleman the Commissioner of Police. But there's one problem, that there are several cases of sexual harassment and worse against him. And yet he's remained in office. And some of those same officers that had charges against him.
Member for Castries Central.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, the leader of the opposition is misleading the House. He said, and I quote, there is a gentleman who we are considering making Commissioner of Police, but there is a problem. He has several cases of sexual harassment or whatever against him. That gives the impression that there is a high-ranking member of the police force who has been charged with a sexual offense. If that is not so, the leader of the opposition has to withdraw that statement.
Please proceed, member.
Mr. Speaker, there are real concerns. It is not the opposition speaking out, Mr. Speaker, that's causing the problems. I'm sorry that it's uncomfortable. We all, when we're sitting in the seat of Prime Minister, go through a significant level of discomfort. That's not unique to any Prime Minister. There's 180,000 people that believe they have an opinion. And that's fair. But just because there's questions asked doesn't mean that people don't have good intentions for this country, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes those questions are being asked from a good place, to strengthen the system, to hold people accountable. That's what it's about, Mr. Speaker. We speak about crime in the region. I have been in this seat in the opposition multiple times, Mr. Speaker. We ever had to sit through the misleading information, factual as it may be, that the GDP of St. Lucia during COVID dropped more than it did in any other OECS country. We've repeatedly explained, because we are the ones where the GDP had been revised in St. Lucia, and tourism took on a more significant role, and one of the things that COVID impacted the most was tourism. Impacted it to the extent, Mr. Speaker, it was shut down. Okay? Everybody went through the same thing. Okay? Everybody went through the same thing. But on the reciprocal side, there were members on this side that did not believe that saving lives and saving livelihoods and coexisting with COVID and reopening the borders was feasible. In fact, they thought that was a ludicrous idea. But it's because of that decision, as early as we did, that caused the recovery of St. Lucia to be a very sharp V. Because while the economy contracted severely in 2020, in 2021 it went up by 12%, and in 2022 it shot up by almost 18%. And I dare say that if the government had maintained the policies that we were undergoing in the country, i.e. not stopping the Rodney Bay Road, not stopping the housing development at Shock and in Tavern, not stopping the airport, not stopping the DSH project, continuing with the port in the south, I cannot even begin to imagine how much further this country would have been. But we want to play with statistics, Mr. Speaker. So let's play with the statistics of crime. St. Lucia has the highest crime rate per 100,000 of any of the OECS countries. That's true. Grenada, I think up to this year, up to now in this year, is 10 murders. And they had 13.67 murders, homicides, for 100,000. Dominica, 27. Antigua, 10.7. St. Kitts, 15. St. Vincent, 30. St. Lucia, 39. And climbing. Why is that comparison not good? Why is that comparison not good? Where are we going? If we're not going to be honest with ourselves, if in fact it's just as easy to say, you know what, it's the opposition causing all these problems, because I don't want to be accountable for the decisions I'm making, and to understand that the Prime Minister doesn't just hold the portfolio of Prime Minister, which is senior enough, because everybody reports to him. But he also holds the portfolio of national security. The buck stops with him, whether he likes it or not. And if in fact the police are not working well and police have not gained the confidence, or there's a growing lack of confidence in the police, which there is, and it's not a reflection on the ordinary police officer. But you cannot come to a press conference, Mr. Speaker, and say evidence is gone in 3 cases with police officers. And that when the Prime Minister is approached with the greatest amount of respect, sir, to say, well, he called me just before he did the press conference, and then he went on vacation. On something as urgent, something that deals with the integrity of our country, which is crime fighting, and the persons that are responsible for doing it, people are looking back and saying, can I trust them? That is the great disservice that we can do to the police officers. That's not the opposition that's doing that, Mr. Speaker. But it's when we have empathy and understand the suffering that's taking place in this country, and that nobody in this country, regardless of who they are, should have to go through that kind of suffering. It's when we have that in our heart that creates the level of urgency to solve the problem. And it does not help, Mr. Speaker, when the persons that are responsible for protecting us have question marks. Because that's the truth. And when we talk about this bill, which is a significant bill, and I'm glad the Prime Minister spoke about 2017. And Prime Minister Motley from Barbados and myself in particular, we're driving this policy to try to get CARICOM countries to agree $1 off of our head tax to be assigned to strengthening RSSS and impacts. And that we can create, the goal was to create an Interpol.
Remember, you have 15 minutes left.
To create an Interpol for CARICOM. That's been a consistent argument. And in the meanwhile, things like this, the warrant, were to strengthen it. That's what the purpose of it was. So even when I got in the unfortunate, no pun intended, row with Rowley, I didn't go to Trinidad to tell Prime Minister Rowley how to run his country. I addressed Prime Minister Rowley because he's the lead Prime Minister for crime. Because each Prime Minister plays a cabinet role in CARICOM, and Trinidad is the destination of crime. And I remember in 2019 going down again with Prime Minister Motley. And the two of us went down, Mr. Speaker, because we were both ministers of finance. And we wanted to give the reassurance to Prime Minister Rowley and to the committee. As ministers of finance, we were committing our countries to the dollar. So, Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly support this warrant. I'm sorry that we had to go into this lengthy debate, but I think it was very important, Mr. Speaker, that I address some of the things that the Prime Minister seemed to be very concerned about. As I said to you, it seems like a confession that he was making, but to again reassure him that as much as he wants to try to think that what we're doing is politicizing things, we're simply holding his government accountable. That's what the opposition does, and particularly the leader of the opposition, Mr. Speaker. Particularly, right? I've tried to do it in the most respectful way. I have written letters. I'm hoping that the experience I've had for the last 5 years, the experience that Kenny Anthony's had, the experience that Stevenson King had, there's never been an opportunity where we've all sat on the table together. We're very lucky in this country to have that kind of historical experience here. Sit in a room, best practices, everything off. Because the Prime Minister is 1,000% correct. This is all of our businesses. But I want to say to the Prime Minister, he has more support from the opposition than he thinks. But I think we need to spend a little bit less time looking to blame the opposition on really things that I can point out that speak to the hypocrisy of many of the things that they have said as a government. So again, Mr. Speaker, I endorse this. I continue to endorse anything that continue to strengthen regional security, because I genuinely believe in my heart that if we can have an Interpol system for the CARICOM, that we would be much better off, where the brightest of our police officers have somewhere to go. When we need to have an audit done, when we need independent investigations done, that there's a resource, a pool of persons that we can draw upon, and persons now that are gaining experience about crime not only domestically, but also understanding it on a regional and international basis. I thank you very much for your patience and the opportunity, Mr. Speaker.